Today's guest has won a Paralympic medal, captained her country at a World Cup, and then went on to win the Golden Boot at that same World Cup. Para Matildas star Georgia Beikoff, thanks so much for joining me today.
No worries. Thanks, Abby. Thanks for having me.
So you grew up in and went to school in New South Wales city of Newcastle, and Newcastle seems to have produced a lot of amazing athletes. What do you think is it about that community that has so many great athletes?
I think maybe sport is just really huge in Newey. We've got and lots of sports as well. I think just growing up in schools, like I was always on the soccer on the oval playing soccer with the boys, and there was always handball kind of games going on. So I think there's just a lot of opportunity out there, and like various sports that there's lots of different pathways, which is awesome.
And I didn't want to focus on this too much, but you have cerebral palsy, and I guess that's probably a pretty important part of your story. Were you
Yeah.
diagnosed when you were quite young, or were you a bit older?
Yeah, no, it was from birth, so I didn't get enough oxygen to my brain for a period of time when I was in the womb. And so for the first few hours when I was born, I kept having seizures. And so the doctors really thought there was obviously something really wrong. Um, but then they did all the tests and it seemed to be like I was okay. And in the first few or maybe 10 to 12 years of my life, I did a lot of physical therapy, and sport was very much part of that as therapy. And like mum was a PE teacher and dad loved playing sport as well. So I didn't have much choice. They just sort of literally threw me in the deep end in terms of playing sport. Yeah.
And it might not affect you as much now as it did when you were a bit younger, but for those who don't know, can you explain like what cerebral palsy means and how does it affect you in everyday life now?
Yeah. So it's really much of a movement impairment that is like it's pretty much an acquired brain injury. And so it's cerebral palsy is it's a big scale. So you could get someone like me. I'm affected on my right side, so hemiplegia. And so it means that it's on my left side of the brain that is partially damaged. And so I'm ambulant, which means I don't need any like technology, assistive technology to help me walk or but then you have someone who might be in a wheelchair who needs 24-hour care, who struggles to speak, and do all those everyday things. So um yeah, it's a very large spectrum, I think. But it really depends on how your brain is damaged, I suppose. Yeah. Hope
And
that
I,
makes any sense.
yeah. And I guess growing up and when you were going to school, did you like kind of feel different in any way or did everyone kind of accept you?
Yeah, I think it was when I started at school in kindergarten, I figured out that I was a bit different because I had to have a splint on my leg and a splint on my arm. And so I think that's when I started to realize, oh, I am a bit different. But I think mum and dad, they didn't give me any special treatment, which I hated back then, but I'm also like very thankful now. Um, and like I have a little brother. Well, he's not so little anymore, but a younger brother, he loved playing sport as well. So, and he wouldn't really give me any special treatment either. You know, we're both very competitive. So, that was very helpful in terms of, yeah, learning the, um, the important lessons of life, I suppose, that, um, winning and losing and how, like, if you were to lose in sport, like how you go about that and navigate that. Um, you know, you don't always win all the time. And yeah,
And you mentioned before that sport was kind of a way to help you when you were diagnosed, I guess, with cerebral palsy, but you were always a quite athletic kid, so you would have like loved sport anyways?
I think so. I think so. I think it was very much mum and dad who, um, yeah, I think they were both very sporty. And so I think they would like, yeah, we would have played sport anyway, whether I had CP. I think swimming was very much a big thing for my physical therapy for CP. And so I was swimming 3 times a week throughout, like, yeah, being a toddler and throughout school. So, and then sport just, I think growing up in Newcastle and and playing sport at school. So that just came naturally, I think.
So you did athletics and you also played football and cricket as a kid, I think. Was there anything else
Yeah.
or just trying to do everything?
Um, yeah, well, I played a fair bit of tennis as well. And I think it was, well, I go back to mum, like she was a PE teacher. So I remember, like, we've got home videos of us when I was really little and like I'm on my tummy. It was before I could even walk, and mum and dad are just rolling balls to us and we're needing to roll them back, that kind of thing. Um, and so I think developing those fundamental movement skills of kicking and throwing and catching, I think that you use all those skills in across so many sports. Even like going camping, we were quite adventurous. Would go camping a lot, and so mum would set us a challenge to throw a rock and try and hit a tree across the river, that kind of thing.
That's cool.
So yeah, like little things like that. It was always something to do.
So you were
Didn't matter where we were.
so you kind of just did everything, but did you have a favorite sport out of everything that you played?
I think football, soccer. Yeah. I I went into athletics because there was no pathway for football for us as female CP athletes, and so that's when I went into athletics and got into javelin, I suppose. It was sort of the next best thing. Wanted to see how far I could get. So I'm really excited that football in the Para Matildas is getting bigger and bigger now these days. Yeah, it's very exciting.
I don't know everyone's story is the same, but I have interviewed a couple of, or quite a few para athletes who have told me that when they started playing sport, that was where they kind of felt like they belonged. Was it kind of the same for
Yeah.
you?
Oh, definitely. I was quite a anxious kid when I was a teenager. Um, and when I think I was about 14 or 15, I was invited to my very first athletics camp up in Queensland. And I nearly didn't go because I would get homesick really, really badly. And I don't know how mum got me on that plane, but I ended up getting on that plane and it was amazing. It was the first time that I really met people who, there was this one girl we were 5 days apart. She had CP, she was affected on her right side. And so we were exchanging stories of like, oh, do you find this hard? Oh, yeah. Tying your hair up in a ponytail is really annoying because you don't have the fine motor skills to do that, or tying your shoelaces up when you were little, like little things like that. And so it was the first time where I felt like, yes, this is my place. This is where I belong.
Was that, or I don't know if you might have thought of it before, but was that where you kind of thought you might have like been able to represent Australia in a sport when you were older?
Yeah, I think so. I think so that was when I was about 14, 15, and then the London Paralympic Games was when I was 19. So there was quite a number of years where I had to work really hard, but it definitely was um, a, a, a dream or a goal that was, you could tell that it was going to become a reality. I think it became a little bit more real. Yeah, achievable, more achievable, I suppose. Yeah.
And I did want to ask, like, who were your, I guess, sporting idols and who were your sporting role models when you were growing up? And was it easy to kind of find people who you were inspired by on TV?
Yeah, I think that's one thing that I think um I am most definitely, and most of the Para Matilda girls, we're really proud that we get to sort of be a new role model for, especially in football, because growing up, like I would be wearing my Manchester United jersey, when I was 10, but the only para athletes that we really could look up to were like Louise Savage and Kurt Burnley, um,
Yeah.
who were, yeah, brilliant wheelchair athletes, but we didn't really like, and I mean, social media has changed a lot. And, thanks to you, you're exposing us a lot more, which is fantastic in spreading our message. But Kathy Freeman, like I remember watching her, like I would have been 7 in the Sydney Olympics, and seeing her partner with the Matildas at the last World Cup. I think that was really special. But yeah, I think in terms of para athletes, I mean, Kurt Burnley was really, and then there was another guy called Heath Francis who he was another Hunter Newcastle local boy. He was an arm amputee, and so I ended up being in the newspaper with him when I was about 10, which was really special. Um, it was sort of like a come and try disability sports day. And so I sort of started following him. But I mean, back then, like social media was not a thing. All you really saw was stuff on the news, and para sports was not really something that you would see on the news, let alone female in sports. So, I think those were my sporting heroes, I suppose. But yeah, really exciting that we've got so many different sports now, especially with women in sport, and para sports as well.
Yeah, but it is so great that you and the other Paratilis are now kind of being this new
Yeah,
generation of role models.
yeah.
So thanks so much.
No, not at all. Thank you.
Oh, and I guess then just fast forwarding a bit, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you were 15, you were chosen in a Newcastle emerging rep cricket side. If you had to compare yourself to one female player in the Australian women's cricket team, what kind of player would you be?
Oh gosh, goodness me. Well, probably not like Elise Perry because I was a shocking batter. I loved bowling, so I played with the boys a lot, and I ended up being um, an opening bowler for just club cricket. And that was really cool being a girl, and the other teams would be like, "Oh, who's this girl being an opening bowler?" And I'd get a couple of wickets within the first couple of overs, and they walk off with their heads heads down. Um, probably not Elise Perry, and I didn't really wicket keep either. So, yeah, probably one of the quick bowlers, but down the batting order. Yes.
And that was in 2008. And then 2 years later, you're winning a gold medal in javelin at the Track and Field National Championships. What was the journey from being an opening bowler to an athletics gold medalist?
Well, I think I had, thanks to mum and dad, I had a very wicked throwing arm. So when I was fielding, they would put me out on the boundary because I sort of knew how to throw far. And I think that was just, it was an easy transition of, javelin is a very similar um, movement skill to throwing a cricket ball. I mean, throwing a spear is very different to throwing a ball. I've hit myself in the head a couple of times with the tip of the javelin, but I think I when I went to that first camp up in Queensland when I was about 15, because I was playing soccer at the time as well, and I was on the wing, I was playing left wing, and so I knew how to run fast, but I ended up getting an injury of shin splints, and so that sort of determined that I'd do javelin instead of being a sprinter. Um, yeah, but I remember there was a bit of a tug of war between the throws coach and the sprint coach because they both wanted me to do that their discipline. Um, but I think the shin splints really determined doing javelin, which I think ended up being a pretty good choice.
Yeah, and I guess then you went to the London Paralympics in 2012 and you were 19, I think. Do you remember how you
Yeah,
felt making the team and just walking into the stadium for the opening ceremony?
I remember um, it was just after I'd finished G12 that I was offered a scholarship to train as a full-time athlete down at the institute at the AIS. And so I was living down there with a few other para athletes who were also trying to be selected for the London team. And I remember we all got letters in the mail saying that we'd been selected. And I remember this, I've got this, yes, very vivid memory of being in our little residence on site. And we both, yeah, we all got our letters. And I think it was the girl who actually I first met at the athletics camp. We ended up living together, which was really cool. And I remember we were screaming and running around the house. We were so excited, so excited. But it was just the whole experience was just so surreal. I mean, I was 19, so I was one of the babies on the athletic squad. But yeah, the opening ceremony and then even just competing. I was also in the 4x100 relay,
Oh yeah.
the CP women. And that was my first event on the Tuesday night, and then the javelin was the Saturday morning. And we came fourth by 0.24 of a second. And there was a bit of a discrepancy because one team fell over and
Oh
then
wow.
we got DQ. It was a whole thing. You'll have to watch the replay because we got disqualified because one of our girls stepped out of their lane
Oh
right
wow.
before they took off. And then we got reinstated because it didn't actually affect the race. But then we still got fourth by 0.24 of a second.
Wow.
And so we missed out by it was like so close. And so I was so determined. I was like, I need to get it. I really want to get a medal now. And so come Saturday, the first throw, I was quite anxious because I wasn't throwing the distances that I was wanting right before a big competition. But the first through a PB landed me in third spot, and I just sat there for the whole competition and ended up getting a bronze medal, which was amazing. So surreal. It was
Yeah.
great.
It's great that you won a bronze medal. That must have been so special, especially after the
Yeah.
first race.
Yeah. Yes. No, it was. I remember waking up the next morning and I'd put my medal in the bedside table drawer. And I woke up, and was like, I've got to make sure that it's there because I'm worried that it was just a dream, but it was real. It was real.
Where do you keep the medal now? Is it still in a bedside table drawer?
Yeah, yes. It's yeah, mum and dad's in the back bedroom. Um, where I think I'm too afraid to put it out on display. Mum and dad have a whole bunch of photos in their living room of me competing, but yeah, it's just in some cupboard in the back room. I get it out sometimes and show people, but um, yeah, no. I'm very, very proud of that achievement. Yeah.
And I do think there were actually some other legends of Australian Paralympics in that went over to those games, like Ellie Cole, Kurt Fernley, and I think Dylan Alcott was maybe playing basketball, and then swimmer Jackie Freeney won 8 gold medals. What was it like to be
Yeah.
part of that team with all those other incredible
Well,
athletes?
yeah. Well, I like Ellie Cole and I actually we lived together in the same pod at AIS, and so we got to know each other really, really well over those 8 months leading up to the games. But it was really a roller coaster of emotion because I think these athletes like people would achieve like Jackie Freeney and all her medals, and like Ellie had a very successful competition as well. But then you would see all these other athletes who would just fall short for some odd reason, or because their competitors were just pipped them in the end. And so I think me competing on the very last day was actually really challenging because I was going already through this roller coaster of emotion. And I haven't even done my event yet. How am I gonna cope with all of this? But I think it was really amazing to because I was so young, have other athletes around me who could mentor me and talk through the things that I was a bit anxious about. And competing in front of 80, 90,000 people, it was a really scary thing to think about. And so it was fantastic having people around athletes who like have been to the games before. Yeah, to mentor me through that.
And I guess apart from competing at the London Paralympics, when you were finishing school, what other goals and dreams did you have?
Yeah, I really wanted to become a teacher, which I am now. And so when I got back home from the games, I decided to go to uni, and I think I started playing soccer again, and I fell back in love with soccer. So I gave athletics up, and just started playing soccer and just studied to become a teacher. So yeah, I'm really glad that I went to uni and graduated, and now I'm a primary teacher. And the school that I'm at in Sydney, they're a massive football school. And so they're really excited about the Paratillies, and they're really excited to see us go off to the Asia Cup and come home with a trophy, which is what we're hoping. But yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say your students must think it's pretty cool that you're a Paratilly.
Yes, I actually had a girl in year three dress up as me for book week,
Oh,
which was so surreal. But I mean, there's a book called What Makes a Matilda, and it came out right before the World Cup, and so there's a bit of a spread on us as well with some photos. And so when this girl turned up, I was just, yeah, I nearly fainted because I was like, what the heck? This is so surreal. It's
they're
so
cool.
crazy. Yeah, yeah.
I know you kind of mentioned it before, but could you talk a bit more about how you made your way to the Para Matildas and like what like
Yeah.
emotions you felt when you found out?
Yeah, I think the likes of so Nicole Christodoulou, she's been one of the originals from the very beginning. I think she was just so determined to try and make a team, and so she was constantly emailing all these people. And so back in, and I think with the Cerebral Palsy Alliance, there's a thing called Kanga Cup, I think, which I wasn't really part of, I think because I was more involved with athletics back then. But that would hold like football gala days for all ability, like different disabilities. And so I think CP football was sort of around for us females for a while. And of course, the Pararoos, they've been the team for 25 years now. But I think the likes of Nicole and a few others, they were just so determined to not give up and try and like just emailing whoever they could to try and get a team. And then they decided to create a come and try day kind of thing. And then there was a like our first Oceania camp. And so we actually invited some of the girls from Japan over. It was the first time we met them. And it was such a cool camp. I reckon we had maybe 17 girls from Australia, from all around the country. And then, yeah, four of the girls from Japan. That was in 2019. And so things were really looking up. Things were looking like we could create an actual official Para Matildas team. But then, of course, COVID hit. So everything had to be put on pause. And so throughout COVID, management were working really hard to still try and create some kind of culture and team morale. So then we would be ready for when COVID would finish, we could launch a team. And last year we had the launch, and on that day there was a big surprise announcement that we were going to a World Cup in 7 weeks' time as well. So it was just, I think whirlwind would be an appropriate word to describe because it just happened all so quickly. Um, we had to band together, a team within 2 months. And we ended up going to Spain and, yeah, getting a silver medal. We're so pumped to see what the next 5 years, 10 years we're going to look like. And even like next year, we know that there's going to be lots of things happening for 2024, which we're really pumped about. And we've grown so much. We only had maybe 10 or 12 members when we went to the World Cup in May last year, and now we've got maybe just under 40 in the extended
Wow.
squad. So it's great because it's becoming more competitive for us to make teams, to go over to Japan and play international matches as well, which means that we're needing to improve as a national squad as well.
And you spoke a bit about before when you guys first got together and there wasn't many of you and now there's just under 40 in the extended squad.
Yeah, yeah,
When
yeah,
you
yeah.
when you and all of the girls got together in that first training camp, I guess what else did you talk about in terms of what you wanted to achieve and the legacy that you guys all wanted to create and leave?
Well, I think we first and foremost, I mean football, we all love playing football, but I think it really becomes secondary because we think about when we were younger and there was no pathway for us as female para athletes for football, especially for football. And so I think I reckon for 6-year-old Georgia Beikoff to see someone like Talia Blanchard with, she wears her splint on her arm when she plays, and wearing that green and gold jersey, I think would have given, yes, 6-year-old George a lot of hope that there is a pathway and that there is avenues that you can go down and challenge yourself and try and figure out, try and I suppose see how far you can get with with sport and things that you absolutely love. So I think that's what we were talking about, and we want to leave that legacy of and not just for young girls, but just women who have CP. There's one woman who she's in her 40s and she's never really been part of a community with other people with cerebral palsy before until now, and she's in her 40s, and so we want to create a community. And it's all about family for us. We want to create a family where people, well, because the boys and the Pararoos, they're very much part of our family as well. Yes, we want to create a legacy of family and make our country proud.
Yeah. And I guess a lot of the other girls in that squad come from lots of different sporting backgrounds. To be given the chance to play football, at a World Cup on a proper world stage, what did that mean to this group of women who have probably spent a lot of their lives being told that they couldn't really achieve their dream?
Yeah, for sure. I think most of us have come from individual sports.
Yeah.
And so going into a team dynamic, it's just so different. Like we've become really, really close. Like we're really great mates. And even off the field, we spent a lot of time together. One of the girls had her 21st party the other week. And so just celebrating things that happen in life. And one of them got engaged, I think last year. And so, like I said before, just becoming a family has been really special. I think, and it's just a different vibe. I think being a team instead of being individual sport. Yeah. So I think that's been really special.
And you personally, you finished the World Cup with the Golden Boot, leading scorer for the tournament, and the Para Matildas on the silver medal, which was incredible. The first senior Australian football team to make a World Cup final, and this was only just about 3 months after the announcement. Did you and the team feel like you guys had all achieved something pretty special?
Oh, yes. I think we were quite devastated that we lost against the US. It was a tight match. We went into extra time. The final score was 4-2 in the end. And so I think we definitely were devastated that we didn't get away with the win. But after that, we were just so happy, unbelievably happy. And it was really just the beginning. And so when we look back on the 8 weeks that we had spent together, imagine what we could do in the next 12 months, the next 5 years, the next 10 years. And even, the last 18 months since then, we've really grown. And the way that we were playing in Japan, I'm really excited to see what we have in store for Australia in the next few months, in the next year or two. So keep your eyes peeled.
I actually interviewed you and a couple of the other Paratilis late last year at an awards night. And you mentioned how the team was important because
I think we've got a lot to give back to our communities, back to other people with disabilities.
Why do you think this team is not important just for playing football, but also in general for just representing people with cerebral palsy, brain injury, and also stroke?
Yeah, well, I think yes, we do play football, but I think even just the fact that I'm a teacher and there's we've got a few other teachers on the team, and there's other girls who are working full time and holding down jobs and doing amazing stuff in the space of disability advocacy, and I think that's really important. It's not just about sport. We want to I suppose, broaden the horizons of this is what, look at all the opportunities that people with disabilities have in life. It's not just sport, but even in the workplace and other avenues as well. And so I think in terms of the disability community, yeah, we want to, I suppose, trailblaze and put our flag in the ground and I suppose show Australia and the world that there's lots of things that you can throw yourself into and give it a red hot go and see what happens.
And yeah, this team has only existed for just over a year, and you've already made a World Cup final, and Australia is hosting the Asian Cup later this year. What do you think is possible with the Para Matildas?
I definitely think we will bring the World Cup home next year. So we've got every 2 years we've got a World Cup. We are so keen to show the US what we've got. We're really keen to come back with a vengeance and give them a good run for their money. But we've got our Asia Cup coming up in November, and so that will be a really great time for our new girls to play in an environment, a international environment, and even on home soil, which we're really excited about. It's gonna go off. It's gonna be amazing.
And just finally, it's a great time for women in sport. You've got more opportunities and exposure, but we've also got lots of great women with disabilities playing sport like wheelchair rugby. And now we've got a women's football team for incredible athletes like yourself. Does it feel like that this is just really an exciting time for female para-athletes in sport?
Yeah, definitely. We've got the Olympics and Paralympics coming up in Paris next year. And I think it's skyrocketed in terms of women in sport, and it's just really exciting to see what else we can do and what other sports might become, in the spotlight. And I'm really excited to see what Australia can do in the next 12 months, especially off the back of what the Matildas have done in the World Cup for FIFA. And we're really proud of those girls. And it's just been awesome.
Well, good luck for the future. I'm so excited to see where the Paratillies can go. But thanks so much for joining me. It was so nice.
No worries. Thanks so much, Abby.
Thanks. Go the Paratillies.
Woohoo!
Thanks for listening. To support Her Way, visit the link in the description section.